So, tonight we're going to talk about the temple. Does everybody recognize that one?
Yep.
Probably seen that in a lot of pictures. It's the Salt Lake Temple. I've been in there. It's a very beautiful building. Very old building. I think they started building it sometime in the 1850s, and one day they didn't finish it till like late 1800s.
It was 40 years in the making. I don't know the year.
40 years to make.
53, dedicated 93.
Yeah, 53 to 93. I know it was right in there. As a matter of fact, while they were in Utah, they built 2 or 3 other temples faster while waiting for this one to be built. But this is the head honcho. They put a lot of time into this one.
You know, the thing that surprised me about the Salt Lake City Temple was the decor inside. It's pinks and blues. That really surprised me when I went in there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect them to. You know,
It's beautiful. It's a lot of pastels. It's all hand painted.
Yeah.
You can watch some movies about the building of that temple, how they put so much time. They had their best artists and their best sculptors and their best masons put this thing together, and they took their time.
Yep.
And this is another temple that we're going to talk about. This is the very first temple that the Mormons ever built in Kirtland, Ohio, and I've been there. They don't own it anymore. It's owned by the Community in Christ, which is the RLDS church. There was a court battle over it, and after Joseph Smith died, there was a court battle as to who was to get the church. And the court, I think I've told you this, the court who had no skin in the game, the judge found that the property belonged to Joseph Smith III, his son, and Emma, which was his family. So by that court decision, we understand that the LDS, or the big Mormon church in Salt Lake, is actually the splinter group of what the original Mormon church was. They won't say that, but that's what the court found. Anyway, meaningless information for us tonight. This is, again, this is the first temple in Ohio. So why do Mormons build temples? Mormons believe that God's people have always been commanded to build temples, from the tabernacle to the in the wilderness to Solomon's temple, in the temple to the temple in Jerusalem that was destroyed in 70 A.D. After the Mormon restoration, Joseph Smith claimed that the Lord commanded him to build a temple in Kirtland, Ohio. The floor plan of this temple would be different than all future Mormon temples. It had thrones. They looked like thrones on either side of the building, either side of the interior. One side for the Aaronic priesthood and one side for the presiding Melchizedek priesthood. The congregation sat in the middle, facing one way or the other. There are 4 large veils made of canvases that could be raised and lowered in between the congregation, if you understand what I'm meaning by that. This is a picture of the inside. Like I said, I've been in there. Both ends look identical to this, and so this is where the high priest of each priesthood would sit on either side, and then the members would sit in these pews here. And then you see that up at the top, that canvas, that's the veil that they had in the first temple. And this veil is just like those old window shade blinds. This thing would come down in between them. I don't know what they did. I don't know what that was there for. I don't know what kind of, do you know?
Yes, they would separate. So like this curtain here, they would close this into 2 different rooms. Each room would be how we go through different sessions in the temple, the telestial room, and so forth. So they actually cut it into 4 quarters.
Okay. So that's what it looks like. Very old building, very beautiful building. I've seen it. It's been maintained very.
Is the public allowed in there?
Yes. So the our LDS church, they don't practice any rituals in there. I think they do have some church meetings in there, but more or less it's open to the public. You can, they'll ask you for a donation because the building is so old. They ask for donations to help keep it up. And I know that the Mormon church has tried to buy it back several times and they won't sell it. What the Mormon church has done is, I believe they've donated some money to help keep it up, and they have restored a lot of the buildings around Kirtland, which is fun to go. You know, I'm a history guy, so it was fun to go there and go into those old buildings that they've reconstructed right on the they found the original foundations, and you can go through there and tour and learn how they lived. It's not so much a religious tour. They will tell you about Mormonism, but they tell you how the people lived in the early 1800s. And there's some really pretty cool stuff, like they had little cabinets over top of their fireplace, and women would put blankets in there, and then at night when it was time to go to bed, they would pull the blankets out of there, and they'd be warm, so you could go to bed in a nice warm blanket. Or they would put the men's dinner up there, so the men come in after working all day, their meal was still hot, you know, kids have eaten and gone to bed, it was kind of like a microwave to keep their food warm. Interesting stuff. Mormons will tell you that this temple was never intended to be used for rituals such as the Endowment. Rather, its purpose was used for revelation. Joseph Smith claimed that he received visits from every prophet and apostle from Adam to Moroni, even Jesus Christ himself. Each one gave him instructions and passed along priesthood keys to him and him only. Therefore, he alone had complete authority over all the gospel except Jesus Christ. His only witness to all these events was his counselor, Sidney Rigdon, at the time. This is just a painting of, I think this is supposed to be Elijah. So each one, they claim that each prophet, Joseph Smith said he had, you know, sit down and had conversations with Paul. He even described what Paul looked like. Black curly hair and blue eyes. You know, he would go through all these.
Somebody from the Middle East with blue eyes.
So he would tell God. He met all of them. Moses, all of them appeared to him in the Kirtland Temple. And so Mormons today, when you ask them, well, how come that temple isn't built like all the others? They'll say, well, it was never built for ritual. It was never built for the endowment. It was built so that these keys could be restored.
You suppose he asked Paul, said, well, wait a minute, that's not what Moses said. You think he ever had any of those conversations?
What's that?
You think he ever said to Paul, well, wait a minute, that's not what Moses said?
Did they ever contradict?
Yeah.
One prophet contradicted
You would think
the
out
other?
of that many people.
Yeah, you'd think that there'd be some issues, huh?
Yeah.
According to Joseph, the Lord commanded him to build another temple in Independence, Missouri. Because of persecution, that temple was never built, but the Lord promised that it would be built in this generation. Now that was over 175 years ago, 1837. It's a picture of it today. It still hasn't been built. And I would say that his generation has passed long ago. Let's see. On February 18th, 1841, construction began on the Nauvoo, Illinois temple. However, Joseph would not live to see its completion as he died June 27th, 1844.
How old was he at that time?
He was 43 when he passed away. This temple, after the Mormons left Nauvoo, Illinois, and went to Salt Lake City, this temple was overtaken and it was burned and gutted, and I think for a while it was used for a barn, you know, the outside and exterior of it, but it was eventually completely demolished. And about, I'd say about 10 years or so ago, they rebuilt it. right back on the same land. So this is a brand new building. What you're seeing here is not the original temple.
Are those two pentagrams up at the top?
That's correct.
He was 38 when he died.
38 when he died? Okay. Yes, and you'll see this on the Salt Lake Temple too. They have the same windows and they have pentagrams. And you'll see the sun, the moon, and stars, and all of this stuff is from Freemasonry. What they don't tell you. All right, I myself joined the Freemasons in 2001. This is after I'd already been through the Mormon temple. Okay. One of the reasons I did that was because when I was going through my Mormon endowment interview, which we'll talk about later what that process is, the stake president told me that you're going to hear stuff that the endowment was taken from Freemasonry, and I'd never even heard of that before. And he told me, yes, Joseph was a Freemason, but this is nothing like the Freemasons. So that kind of actually sparked my curiosity. But anyway, I found out that George Washington, Ben Franklin, and most of the founding fathers were all Freemasons. These were my childhood heroes. After joining the Mormon Church, I found out that the first 5 presidents of the church were also Freemasons. They had become my new heroes as I'd become a Mason. And I also found out that 1,500 men in Nauvoo, Illinois also joined the Masonic Lodge. So this was a thing the church was doing for a while they were in Nauvoo. The details of Freemasonry are all online. And now I wouldn't fear that someone from the lodge would come and kill me for discussing it. However, I'm not going to do that tonight. I don't want to get into Freemasonry so much tonight, okay? But I will entertain some questions. But you must understand that in the 1800s, the fraternity took this much more seriously. Google the William Morgan affair, and you will find that Mr. Morgan came up missing around the time Joseph was in upstate New York. Mr. Morgan wrote a book exposing the Masonic ritual. To my knowledge, his body has never been found. Later, Joseph Smith married William Morgan's widow, Lucinda Morgan Harris, who was already remarried to George W. Harris. That's called a polyandrous marriage. The point of this stuff was taken serious in the 1800s. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next class when we talk about polygamy and polyandry. But it's just interesting. William Morgan, who's you hear a lot about that in Freemasonry. He was one of the first to do an expose on it, and they killed him. And then Joseph marries his widow.
I actually went online and researched the Freemason, and I came upon this website that gives you a list of all the people that joined the Masons back then, and it talked about George Washington, and the list was unending. And it also had Thomas S. Monson's name on the list.
I don't know that he's a Freemason.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, they just showed the list of people that had joined it. I thought that was kind of interesting.
A lot of famous people, a lot of royalty,
yeah,
big people have been a member of the fraternity. Here's an interesting video. If you want to look it up, just go to YouTube, type in Freemasons and Mormonism, and it tells you a little bit about this Morgan affair and how they were connected. So let's look at a timeline here. On March 27, 1836, the dedication of the Kirtland Temple. This is significant because there is no Masonic symbolism anywhere in or on the temple. I've been there and seen it myself. No pentagrams, none of this stuff on the Kirtland Temple. February 1841, construction begun on the Nauvoo Temple. So they would build start laying stone on the outside of it. Joseph Smith received the first degree of Masonry, called the Entered Apprentice, in the presence of Abraham Jonas, who was a politician, He was running for governor of Illinois. He's also the Grand Master of the Lodge of Illinois. And you can find that in History of the Church. Joseph writes all this down in his journal. The very next day, Joseph receives the second and third degrees of Masonry, Fellowcraft and then Master Mason, which is unusual because normally for a Freemason it takes you 3 months. You go to one meeting, you get your entered apprentice. There's some work you have to do, some things you have to memorize, and a test you have to pass so that the next month you can get the second degree and then the third degree. Joseph did them all three in 2 days, which means he was just given the degrees. He didn't have to do the work. Who is Abraham Jonas? Abraham Jonas was a politician in 1842 who was running for governor of Illinois. At that time, Nauvoo had become greater in population than that of Chicago. Mr. Jonas felt that if he could make friends with the Mormon leader Joseph Smith, then he may be able to sway the Mormon vote. As for Joseph, he felt that if Mr. Jonas could win the governorship, the Mormons would have a friend in state capital. Abraham Jonas lost the election. There's another interesting website you can go to learn more about that. So this is why Abraham Jonas, being the Grand Master of Illinois, that's the head person in the state, he had the authority to just give these degrees to Joseph Smith without making him go through the 3-month process that normally Masons have to go through. He had that ability. He was trying to make friends with, he was a politician. He wanted their vote. And Joseph wanted to have a friend and wanted to have the governor be his friend. So they had things to gain from each other. May 4th, 1842, Joseph administers, so this is only, what?
2 months.
Yeah, so March, and then we go to May. So 2 months later, he administers the endowment to a small group of faithful brethren in the upper room of the prophet's red brick store. So in Nauvoo, Joseph owned this red brick building, and he had a little general store downstairs, and they turned the, no, I don't want to say that. They actually built a lodge in Nauvoo, but he would have people over to the upstairs of this store, and they would have meetings, and 2 months later, he gives them the endowment, which is a ritual that we're going to talk about here a little while, right? June 27, 1844, Joseph dies at Carthage. I have read that the judge in the trial was also a member of the Warsaw Lodge, but can't find the link at this time. I still can't find it, but I've seen it in a book, I believe. There's little doubt that the main antagonists in this tragic incident from Mormon history were anti-Mormons from the Warsaw, Illinois. 5 leading men of the group were tried for murder in a court of law, though none were convicted of any crime. Among these men were Mark Aldridge, co-founder and treasurer of Warsaw Lodge, Levi Williams, colonel of the Warsaw Militia, Thomas Cook Sharp, publisher of the anti-Mormon Warsaw Signal, which was a newspaper, and Jacob C. Davis, a prominent politician. And there's some information from BYU that you can go to and look at that. May 1st, 1846, dedication of Nauvoo Temple, the exterior decor in Masonic symbolism. So what I want you to get there from all that is that Joseph gets a revelation to build the temple in Kirtland. There's nothing Masonic about it. There's no Masonic symbols, nothing. There's no Masonic rituals performed there. Then he becomes a Mason. 2 months later, he tells his apostles, he gives them this endowment ritual, tells them the storyline, gives them the handshakes, tells them that the Masonic ritual is the apostate form of what happened in Solomon's temple. Now he died, then they start to do the interior of the Nauvoo temple, Of course, he dies before it's completed, but these other men finish it, and it has a different floor plan, and it has all this Masonic symbolism all around it.
Does the pentagrams come from the Freemasons or from the Mormons?
That's occultic.
It is. It's an ancient occultic sign, but it is found in Freemasonry. There's all kinds of the square and the compass that we're going to talk about. You've seen the square and the compass on all the Masonic paraphernalia.
In front of the statue there.
Yeah, just like this one here. The square and compass. We're going to talk a little bit about where that comes from. We have to understand that before we can really understand endowment. But then when the Nauvoo temple was built, like I said, you've got all this symbolism on it. And a lot of the symbols in Mormonism, like the beehive, that's a big one. It all comes from Freemasonry. It has almost identical meaning. So what happened?
He was killed in June 27th. Did that have any correlation to the May 4th event where he gave this ritual to these people? And now all these Masons are, it seems like, they're pissed off because...
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's one of the theories. There's some other theories that Brigham Young had him killed too, but I don't believe that. Yeah, so my understanding is that the men who came to kill Joseph Smith were from the Warsaw Masonic Lodge, which is a town over somewhere. And it was because he was giving out, not just that he was giving out the Masonic symbols and handshakes and so forth, but that he was also giving them to women, which was a no-no. And like I said, this ain't a big deal today so much, because all this stuff is online. It's all been exposed if you want to see it. But in the 1800s, this stuff was taken very seriously by the fraternity. If you did not do that, it was not good. And so, yeah, they blackened their faces so no one could see them. They rushed the Carthage jail where he was being housed, him and his brother and two others, and shot him, killed him. And then later, some of these men were brought to trial and the judge dismissed it. And I had read somewhere that the judge was a member of the Warsaw fraternity too. So no one was ever convicted for Joseph's death. And for a long time in early Mormon history, that got under the skin of the Mormons, and Brigham Young and some of the other leaders talked that the United States would have to pay for Joseph's blood. The designing and building of Solomon's temple was done by King Solomon and Hiram Abiah. This is according to what the Freemasons say, okay? Now this is according to what this ain't in the Bible. There's some things in the Bible that allude to this, but this is what I'm just telling you now what Freemasonry teaches, okay? Because we want to understand that and then go back and look at Mormonism, okay? The designing and building of Solomon's temple was done by King Solomon and Hiram Abiah of Tyre. And there's the Bible verses for that. According to Masonic ritual, there were 10,000 stonemasons that helped build Solomon's temple. There were 3 types of workers having different pay scales according to their skill and education. The entered apprentice was a novice. The fellow craft did the bulk of the work, the labor, and then the master mason supervised the work and did the more detailed work of the stone masonry. The workers were paid at the end of each day. Now there were no time clocks, there was no ID badges, there was no computers, right? So there had to be a system by which the treasurer would know how to pay each worker when they came to receive their daily wages. So each class of worker was given a secret word, sign, and token, a handshake, and a sign, and a word. Got it? To present to the treasurer. A word, sign, and token for the entered apprentice, a word, sign, and token for the fellow craft, a word, sign, and token for the master mason. As the ritual progresses, 3 ruffians came onto the scene, Jubilah, Jubilo, Jubilam. and attacked the Grand Master Hiram Abiff to get him to divulge the secrets of a Master Mason. So they wanted to get paid by the treasurer. But they didn't want to work for it or earn it, so they tried to get the Grand Master to give them the key word, sign, and token so that they could get paid for nothing, right? When he refused, they killed him and buried him in a shallow grave. King Solomon orders an investigation into Hiram's disappearance. At the end of the investigation, the Jewess, Jubilah, are found guilty and put to death. Solomon then goes to the grave of Hiram and raises him from the dead to the stance of the 5 points of fellowship and gives him the lost secret word of a Master Mason. Masons are always searching for this lost word. There's a secret word that has been lost, and as you go through all these different rituals, you're trying to find it. I've been through 32 of them, and I haven't found it yet. You have a question?
Yeah, where is this story written in the in the Mormon history?
It's not written anywhere in Mormon history. This is what the Freemasons teach. We're talking about Freemasonry.
So
right?
this is about the Freemasons.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. Okay.
So we're trying to understand Freemasonry just for a second, so we can go back. So this is the storyline. Okay, it's a play. Okay, it's a play that's acted out. When you become a Freemason, you go through this play, and as the initiation goes, you're actually in this play. You don't know what's going on, right? And so you're like thrown on the stage in the middle of this play. All the other guys are in on it, and they know their parts, and you're just kind of pushed around, and you're playing your part without knowing what's coming next, okay? But this is the story behind it. They're trying to teach you something. You don't get something for nothing, right? They're trying to teach you something by putting you in this ritual. And as you go through the steps, you get the key word, sign, and token that was given to the Masons at Solomon's Temple so that you can get paid for your work, for your labor. When the workers are called from work into refreshment, they would retire to the lodge. So at the end of the day, when they're done working, they would go to this place called the lodge, and they would rest. That's why in Freemason we call it the lodge. We go to the lodge. They have a lodge night. Here they would eat, drink, and socialize. As they would converse, they would talk about God, which is the grand architect of the universe, meaning any God. It doesn't matter, Jesus, the God of Buddha, the God of Islam. They say there's only one God, and he's all of these to all people. Universal God. Whatever God you're praying to, it's all this one God. Okay? They would also talk about how a Mason should be a good man and do good toward each other, their widows and orphans. As they discuss these things, they use familiar symbols to understand and remember what was taught. Symbols like the square, the compass, the gavel, the beehive. So the point of that is that they would, as they were trying to teach you certain points, certain things to be a better man, they would say, like the gavel, you should be this. Like the square, you should be like this. Like the compass, you should be like this. Common things that they would have been using in their daily work, and try to use these as symbolism to teach you different points.
They're the rosary beads.
I'm sorry?
They're rosary beads.
I guess you could equate it to that, yeah.
So I have a question. What was the point? I mean, the point of joining this club, was it just like good old boys have a lodge night out and talk about?
Male bonding.
Oh, okay. Like a fraternity or something.
It's exactly what it is. It's the world's largest and oldest fraternity.
Except for when you get high enough up, right? Then it becomes seasonal. Isn't that right?
Well, let's see what happens as we keep talking about it. You can go to these links and you're going to see the text, or you can go to any Barnes and Nobles and buy this. It's called Duncan's Ritual, and it tells word for word all of the degrees from the first through the third, which is what you need to be a master mason. Okay? All of that's online. You can see all that if you want to.
Billy, when
Yes.
you're talking about the third degrees, what are you referencing with the Mason?
As you go through that story I just described, you don't do it in one night. It takes 3 nights, 3 different degrees. The first degree is entered apprentice.
Oh, okay.
You learn that, you memorize some things, you come back a month later, you go through the second degree. And the third degree is the hardest. That's where you get killed. That's why you hear the saying, "Hey man, why are you giving me the third degree?" Have you ever heard that term? Mm-hmm. Okay. That comes from Freemasonry. Why are you giving me the third degree? Why are you beating me up over this? Right? That's where that comes from.
Does that have anything to do with the 3 degrees of glory?
No, I don't think so. No. As you can see, the above ritual has nothing to do with what went on inside the temple. It was about the ritual in Freemasonry was about building the temple, the outside of it, right? Had nothing to do with the inside of the temple after it was built. Blood sacrifice, burning of incense, the shewbread, etc. It only has to do with the building of the temple. Do you understand that when you read the Old Testament and you read what Solomon and those Jewish people did inside the temple, right? The burnt offerings and all that has nothing to do with Freemasonry. They don't claim it to be. Has nothing to do with priesthood, has nothing to do with any of that stuff. 2 of the 4 tokens of the endowment is Mormonism. 2 of the 4 tokens of the endowment are the same as found in Freemasonry. 2 of the 4 signs of the endowment are the same as found in Freemasonry. So Joseph changed some of it, but there's definite plagiarism going on. You will also see in the above reference links, Duncan's Ritual Freemasonry, the floor plan of the typical Masonic lodge. The Mormon endowment room resembles more the Masonic lodge, with the altar more towards the center of the room, neither of which resemble the floor plan of King Solomon's temple as recorded in the Bible. Do you understand? The Mormon temple, the Salt Lake temple, and the 150 other, I don't know how many there are now, 150, something like that. The floor plan inside the temple more resembles the floor plan inside a Masonic lodge than it does Solomon's temple. Okay? So now let's talk, we've talked about Freemasonry. Now let's talk about the endowment, the storyline, how to get to the temple. A member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, after being baptized, confirmed, and receiving the priesthood, if you're a male, may request a temple recommend. In order to receive a recommend, the person must be able to answer the following questions. So, you've been a member of the church for a year now, okay? And you've sat through all the Sunday school classes, which takes a year to go through those classes. And so now you're ready to go to the temple. Right? This is like a crowning thing. This is a major thing for a Mormon. You've got to go to your bishop, and you're going to sit down in front of your bishop, and he's going to ask you the following questions, and you have to answer yes to them all if you want to go to the temple. And this is what your bishop's going to ask you. Do you believe in God, the Eternal Father, in His Son, Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Ghost? And do you have a firm testimony of the restored gospel? Not so bad so far, right?
It's scary. Yeah.
Do you sustain the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a prophet, seer, and revelator? And do you recognize him as the only person on earth authorized to exercise all priesthood keys? So what you're saying with this one is Thomas S. Monson, the prophet, my allegiance belongs to him. I do believe that he is the only man on earth that I should follow as far as God is concerned.
Is that whoever's president of the church at the time?
At the time.
What if you said no now?
You're not going to the temple. You won't be able to go to the temple. If you can't go to the temple, you can't go to
So
heaven.
if you want to keep on going, you've got to say yes to every question.
That's correct.
Wow.
Do not ask.
Entrapment.
Do not collect $200.
That's correct. Do you sustain the other general authorities and local authorities of the church? That would mean the bishop sitting right across from you. Do you recognize him as your leader right here in Antioch? Okay. Do you live the law of chastity, which I find funny? After going through polygamy next class, you'll understand why I find that funny now. But do you obey the law of chastity?
What if you're married though?
If you're married, that's your bed. Chastity is any sex outside of marriage.
So polygamy, they ignore that?
No, it's legal.
They don't practice polygamy today.
Of course, I heard that.
But
That's
they
it.
do.
What's that?
But they do.
Not the Latter-day Saint, not the LDS Church. The FLDS and some of the other splinter groups still practice polygamy. But the church across the street here does not.
And when did these questions come into being? Like,
when did they start asking these questions?
Yeah.
I don't know. But they ask the same questions also before you get baptized, leaving out the ones that are specific to the temple. But you have to answer these questions also before you get baptized. Okay.
Billy, this is for men only?
No, men and women.
Okay.
Men and women. Is there anything in your conduct relating to the members of your family that is not in harmony with the teachings of the church? Do you affiliate with any group or individual whose teachings or practices are contrary to or oppose those accepted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Or do you sympathize with the precepts of any such group or individual?
that's scary.
Called mind control.
Go ahead, George.
In 1990s, when I first went through, they asked us, do we affiliate with the Masons? So they were very specific. That's no longer said. I mean, that's actual words there. But they did ask us if we affiliated with the Masons.
When I first joined the Freemasons, there were some of them that looked out. You became a Freemason because they probably were asked that question years before I came along. And I would say, so Joseph Smith was a Mason, and that would shut him up pretty quick. Can't get around that. He was. Everybody knows that.
So, Billy, on question 5 and 6, if you have family members who are opposed to the Mormon belief system, you are punished for that and can't go into temple?
No, where do you get that at?
Well, it says,
Affiliated with any group or
Oh.
individual.
do you affiliate with any group or individual whose teachings or practices are contrary
That's a good question.
to or oppose those accepted?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because a lot of Mormons have relatives who
Are
are
not
outside
Mormon.
the Mormon church.
I wish that it came to my mind. I would have loved to said, yeah, my dad doesn't believe any of this.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is a bishop. And
And
he
so-
has to ask these people, and he comes to have dinner at my house.
So how can you be accepted then? You're not worthy, are you?
It comes down to what does affiliate mean.
Yeah.
It comes down to splitting hairs and what you're gonna say that.
What they're really getting at is, are you part of a feminist group? Are you part of some sort of political group that is opposed to the church? That's really what they're getting at with that question. I always used to say I'm in the union because they would that doesn't count. All right, but it does. The union does a lot of things that are opposed to the church. They support a lot of these liberal groups, but I'm in it and I pay my dues, so I'm affiliated with it. But they would always pass me on that one.
And
But
also on 5,
if I was an activist, right? If I was an activist in a feminist group or gay marriage group that the church is that opposes the church, or the church is standing on those issues, they wouldn't let me go to the temple.
and on 5, it says members of your family, which could be your rebellious teenage children who may be, not in harmony with the teachings of the church.
No, that's about you. That is more like.
It
Are
does
you,
say relating to the conduct of members.
Right, how you relate to
so
them.
are you beating your kids? Are you
Oh, I
committing
see.
adultery? This is are
Oh, I see.
you causing harm to your family?
Okay, I got it, sorry.
Yeah.
Molesting.
Are you molesting child.
And
Your
your
duty and your
conduct.
wife.
Your conduct, correct. Are you treating your family well is what they're asking. Okay. Do you earnestly strive to do your duty in church, to attend your sacrament meeting, that is Sunday school, Sunday church, priesthood, and other meetings, and to obey the rules, laws, and commandments of the gospel? Are you honest in your dealings with your fellow man? This one gets to me because the church is not being honest with its own members about the church history. They've been covering stuff up for years. But see, when you're the everyday average Mormon, you are held to a much higher standard than the leaders of the church are. You are held to a high. And now that we know about the second anointing, I understand why. They can lie and get away with it. They can lie and get away with it. They call it lying for the Lord. But the members are held to a much higher standard than the leaders. Are you a full tithe payer? I heard a story the other day about an older gentleman who had to have a life-saving surgery. He had paid tithing all his years as a Mormon. And this one particular year, he was not able to do it because he was paying so much out of pocket to save his own life. And when we went in to have a tithing settlement at the end of the year, he said, I just didn't have it. I don't have anyone. They took his temple recommend. Because, where's the grace in that? Okay, remember what the Book of Mormon says. You're saved by grace after all you can do. Well, he didn't do all he could do. He could have paid his tithing, right? You see what I'm getting at? There is no grace. There really is no grace in Mormon. Where's the mercy? Nothing. None. You must do all that you can do, and he did not. They took his temple recommend. Have you ever been divorced, or are you now separated from your spouse under order of a civil court? If yes, are you current in your support payments and other financial obligations for family members as specified by the court order in or other written binding commitments? B, were there any circumstances of transgression in connection with your divorce or separation that have been previously resolved by your bishop? So if you've been divorced, they want to know, are you paying your child support and doing what you're fulfilling your obligations to that family? If
Well,
you
you skipped 10.
Did I skip 10? Oh,
Yeah.
Do you keep the word of wisdom? Don't drink coffee, don't smoke, don't drink alcohol.
Don't overeat.
Which that they don't hold that one against you, but if you drink, smoke, drink coffee or tea, or take illegal drugs, you can't go to the temple.
No shopping on Sunday.
No shopping on Sunday. Shirley hated that one.
I did too.
If you have
Let's go shopping, Shirley.
if you have received your temple endowment, do you keep all covenants that you made in the temple? Do you wear the authorized garment both day and night? You want to come up and look at my underwear, you can. I've never worn this. It's unworn, so you can touch it. It's clean. But when you go through the temple, when you go through, part of the endowment is they wash you, anoint you, and then they put this garment on you, and you're to wear it at all times, morning, noon, and night. Okay?
And while you're sleeping.
While you're sleeping, it doesn't matter what the temperature is outside, you wear the garment. And it's supposed to represent the garment that was placed on Adam and Eve when they were expelled from the Garden of Eden. It's supposed to represent that. But when you get a chance, if you come up here and look closely, you're going to see on the breast, on one side is the square and the other side is the compass of Freemasonry.
Oh, wow.
On the men's and the women's. When you go into, we'll talk about this a little bit, when you first go into the Masonic fraternity, you're received at the point of a sharp object. You don't realize what's happening, you just feel something prick you. They've pricked you the first time with a square. A square, you know what a square is? Right, what they use, it's like a ruler that's shaped. Right, this is
Building
it's
square.
a building square shaped like it's a ruler, right? The second time you go through, you're received on the point of this compass. You feel it pricked on your breast. You don't know what it is. They tell you later what it is. So that's the square and the compass. And in Mormonism, they actually have a square and a compass on each breast. Same exact as in Freemasonry. No difference. You're pricked on the right breast with the square and the left breast with the compass. And they're here on the Mormon garment. We talk about that for a minute too. That is a part of most cults. Remember we talked about they control the information that you receive, and to a degree they control even what you wear. This is all mind control. Okay. Not only do they give you this garment that is on your skin. All right. So if you're a lady, you're supposed to wear your bra on the outside of the garment. The garment goes against the skin to constantly remind you who you are. All right. There are other things in Mormonism. You notice the men are always wearing a white shirt. Always. That's supposed to symbolize purity. Okay. If you go into church meeting on Sunday morning, every man in there is going to have a white shirt on. If you go and you don't wear a white shirt, if you do that 2 or 3 times in a row, somebody will come and say, Brother Parker, it'd be better if you wore a white shirt, and set the example for the younger priesthood brethren. Right? They're supposed to wear the white shirt. Ladies, no pants at church. Only wear dresses. No pants in the, Shirley didn't like that one either. No pants in the...
I'm enjoying my jeans at church.
Huh?
I'm enjoying wearing my jeans.
Yeah. No pants in the sanctuary. No crosses. They have an investigator come in wearing a cross, they might politely. I've seen it done. Maybe some of you other guys have seen them let them go, but I've seen it done where they've come and asked them not to wear the cross in the sanctuary.
Why?
Because the cross is a symbol of death. They'll tell you that if somebody shot your brother with a gun, would you wear a gun around your neck? And they see this as a death symbol, and so that's what was used to kill our brother Jesus, and so we don't wear it. What does the Bible say?
The message of the cross is foolishness to those perishing.
That's correct. They don't get the message that this is not a death tool. This is a symbol. The early Christians wore crosses. So if this is a restored church, why didn't they restore that? They got all these other symbols, pentagrams, squares, compass, yet when they see a cross, they go, oh!
They have the different symbols that Mormon thing on the church. Do they teach you that the Freemasons and Mormonism is sometimes tied together?
You'll never hear about Freemasons on Sunday morning at church.
I mean, they give you a picture of it, though, right? But they don't talk about it.
No, they don't talk about it. They don't give you any pictures of
It
it.
says it's on the shirts there.
Symbols.
Yeah, but if you don't know, like when I went through the endowment and they talked about the square and the compass in the endowment, I didn't know what Freemason was. Never heard of it.
Well, what did they say that represents then? What was that?
They'll tell you during the endowment.
Fraternity. It's a fraternity.
No, we're talking about we're talking about in Mormonism now.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yes, they'll tell you that the square and the compass on your garment represent certain things. It's very similar to Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Do you remember the exact wording, George?
Yes, since Solomon's temple, it became corrupt over time. Okay, and so when the restoration happened, Joseph then fixed everything that the Masons were doing incorrectly.
Yeah, but in the temple they say the square is to remind you to square your passions or something like that within the bounds the Lord has set.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact wording. You can go online. I'll give you the link. You can go online and read the entire endowment.
They did with Freemasons. Okay.
But you wouldn't know that if you didn't know. I didn't.
I didn't know.
So when I went into the Freemasons, like I told you, that person that is thrown on that stage into that play and not knowing what's coming next, I wasn't completely ignorant. was like, wow, I've seen some of this before, because I've been through the Mormon temple.
Well, isn't the reverse true though? The symbols of Freemasonry are so popular in our culture. When you go into towns, you see it on buildings, you see it on cars. It's, if you're as old as I am, it was in your history books because, George Washington and Benjamin Franklin were Freemasons. Doesn't it occur to anybody that there's a...
Never did to me, but after I became a Freemason, then I would go back and read like the Constitution and read, when my wife went through her pledge to become an American, I'm listening, I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Masonic ritual. Because all those forefathers were all Masons, and a lot of our American culture
Isn't it on the
comes from, just like I told you. There's a lot of Masonic symbolism on the dollar bill.
But there's a lot
Just like there's a lot of sayings too, like when I say, hey, don't give me the third degree, you all have all heard that.
Lots of it. And there's born again.
And you didn't even know what you were saying, did you?
Really, there's born again Christians that are Freemasons. Yeah. And even people in the Pentecostal church that are in the Freemasons. Because they look at it like it's a fraternity other than the church.
And I never thought
They don't know
about,
what they're caught in.
and I never thought about the things that I was doing and saying in Freemasonry. I would go, you do the shine, you do this, you do it. Okay guys, come on man, let's go eat. I'm hungry. Because there's food at the end of this thing, right? It's always the social thing. That's why I was going, the male bonding. The barbecues and all of that. You don't think what you're saying and doing at an altar with a Bible on it means something. But I didn't think about it. Doesn't matter that I didn't think about it, I was still doing it.
Do the women wear the same style of underwear that the men do? They're up there on the pink towel.
They're pretty much the same. And you're expected to, your clothing should cover your garment. So if you're a woman, you'll never wear shorts above the knee because the garment goes all the way that far.
Well, they're going to show on your dresses once in a while.
You better wear a dress long enough to cover it.
So who started the garment thing?
We're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
All right. Let's finish up this temple recommend. Has there been any, where are we at?
13.
Okay. Has there been any sin or misdeed in your life that should have been resolved with priesthood authority but has not? So after going through all these questions, is there anything else that you've done that we maybe haven't covered here? Do you consider yourself worthy in every way to enter the temple and participate in temple ordinance? That's a mind play. They're making you commit to, hey, I haven't lied, because they've prepped you before you going in here that you understand if you lie to the bishop, it's just like lying to the Lord. And so these last two questions are to get you to own up to something if you've done anything wrong. If the person can answer the questions appropriately, he or she will happen.
You get a membership card.
Yeah, if you can, you get a temple recommend card that will be presented at the temple.
So you can use that at any temple?
Any temple. So this is what it looks like. On the back, there's a barcode. Your signature's on there, your bishop's signature, your stake president's signature. You present that at the temple, they scan it, and you're in the computer.
Now, is the temple different than like the local churches?
That's correct.
So is it be like the one like that's in Oakland? Would that be considered like one of the temples?
That's the temple that people here will go to.
So they don't necessarily go every Sunday there?
No.
That's just special?
The temple's not open on Sundays.
So do they only go there for certain reasons, but not just to worship, right?
They go to perform
just
the endowment.
Okay.
They go to perform baptisms for the dead.
Marriage.
And they go there to get married.
So then is it not open all the time then?
No, Sundays and Monday they're closed.
Do you know any Mormon guys that like you might be married?
Usually on Saturdays, a lot of people go to the temple on Saturdays.
When you get a temple recommend, does that last forever?
2 years. Used to be a year, now they've made it 2 years. So every 2 years, you've got to go back into your bishop and answer these same questions each time.
After the bishop, person number 1, you then have to go to your stake president.
Then
person number 2.
That's right. So you got to do the interview twice. First with your bishop, and then with your stake president, who's higher up than the bishop. And both men have to sign, and then you can go.
And you have to do that every 2 years.
Every 2 years. And if you let it lapse, and they know about it, and they'll come tap you on the shoulder, hey, are you ready for a temple recommend? Because you may have done something. You know, maybe you've been drinking or something, and you don't want to go and talk to the bishop, because if you're going to get disciplined if you do.
What you hide?
What's the discipline?
What you hiding? Could be that you can't participate in the sacrament or something like that. And if you see somebody not participate in the sacrament, they did something wrong.
Oh, so
Cults.
there's finger pointing.
It's mind control.
Oh,
Finger pointing.
Shame.
Control your mind. Keep you where you need to be.
Do you wear different clothes in the temple compared to when you just?
Yes, in the
on
temple,
Sundays?
everyone
Would that
is-
be your?
In the temple, everyone is, well, this is the leaf you were talking about.
Yeah.
Covering the genitals is the leaf
Okay. Oh, yeah.
that Adam and Eve tried to cover themselves with. And then the robe is the holy priesthood robe, and then the hat. The women wear a veil.
In a long white dress. You can't show your feet or your legs.
Long white dress. The shoes are actually very comfortable. I like the shoes.
Do they drive to the temple with that garment on?
No.
This is something
You don't ever
that-
wear this outside the temple, no.
Okay. put it
You
on.
show up in your suit and tie, your dress, you go in and you change. There's a dressing room at the front door.
It's like a-
And everyone, and it is kind of neat when you're supposed to
Oh, yeah, we
whisper.
love rituals, we're human.
Right, you're supposed to whisper. Everyone's walking around. It looks like heaven. Everyone's walking around in white. Everyone's whispering. Everybody's got
Didn't
their...
you feel really special and set apart from the rest of the world? You just felt so special.
That's correct.
'Cause I can see that.
Yes. And you're in this quiet place, and they've got like extra padding in the carpet. You feel like you're walking on clouds. Everything is extremely clean. I'm a neat freak, man, and I've gone to temples, and there's no dust. They keep them extremely clean.
That's because after it's done, you have to come in and clean it.
Do Mormons feel stressed out a lot?
Yeah, because they can't, because you can never live up to it completely. Utah has the highest rate of suicide, teenage suicide. Because they're at such an age where, think about it. They got to answer these questions so that they can go to the temple to do baptisms for the dead. They have things teenagers can go to. You go in there, you're either going to lie to your bishop, which is the same thing as lying to God. Or you're going to tell him the truth. He's not going to tell your parents, but your parents are going to see you not take the sacrament because the bishop said you can't. And then they're going to be like, well, how come you're not? You see, you live in this.
How
As a
young
teenager,
do the
it's
kids,
impossible.
how young are these questions asked?
At 12 years old.
Oh.
12 years old, they can go and do baptism. They can't dress up in all of this, but they can go into the basement of the temple and do certain rituals.
But they're asked these questions at the age
That's
of 12.
correct.
Are the Mormons buried in that apron like Masonics?
That's correct. So if you go to a Mormon funeral, they will be wearing all of this. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to wear this and then put this on top of it. I didn't know what they were going to do.
The numbers kind of intrigue me. I don't know what, seems like a bishop, that's all he's having time to do is interview people. That's what his job is.
They are very busy.
Whatever it is.
They're very
Because the
busy.
Mormon, we know that the Mormon church is growing like crazy, so.
And they're unpaid. They don't get paid for any of that. It's all volunteer work.
This new Boy Scout deal, so they'll hold everybody accountable for that also.
Yeah, I just saw that the other day. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but they are withdrawing. They were the largest church affiliated with the Boy Scouts of America, and now they're withdrawing. Because I guess the Boy Scouts are now allowing transgender, so basically they'll be letting girls.
They're allowing the gay people to be leaders.
Pack leaders.
Okay.
So, it just really, their concern is the influence for the young kids. And they're allowed to have, yeah, all of it. So, and it's been talked amongst the church for a long time that they were contemplating pulling out, and they finally did.
I can't, and I can't argue with that. I can't blame with that. I mean, I know one, the incident I know of is that the transgender, she's a female in her pants, wants to be a Boy Scout and go out in the woods with all the young men. I'm sorry.
Yeah, not good.
That is not right. No,
Yeah.
not good.
So they started their
It's
own.
not good for her or those other
They
boys.
started their own organization.
All right, here's the garment. Somebody asked about it. Upon entering the temple, the person is divested of all worldly apparel, washed and anointed, and given the holy garment of the priesthood, also known as the sacred underwear. And this is what it looked like in 1842. Imagine no air conditioning out there in Salt Lake City in the desert, and you got to wear this under your clothes. And it's from the wrist to the ankle. And then over time it's evolved, and now they wear this.
So do you guys have?
And it's only been, I guess, 1979 that they switched over to the two-piece.
Do you have a store? I mean, is there a store where you guys go and buy all these?
Yes, at the temple, there's a store right around the corner from the temple. You go in there, you show them your temple recommend, and they'll sell them to you. I think it was like $1.50 for the $1.50 for the shorts and $2 for the shirt, something like that. Cheaper than you can get underwear anywhere else.
At least that's reasonable.
But no one can go in there and buy them, it just has to be for you guys, right?
You have to have a temple recommend.
I was just thinking it'd be nice and warm.
They do make thermals. They do make heavier cotton for wear in the winter, and they do still make the longer, to go to your ankle. So
You could get a few pair and sell them on the black market.
So let's talk about the endowment some more. The candidate is then taken to the endowment room of the temple, or what's called the telestial room. The ritual begins with the voices. Okay, now we've talked about what they do in Freemasons, so this is the storyline. There's a play that goes on in the Mormon temple too, and this is the storyline of the Mormon temple. You hear the three personages, Elohim, which is God, Jehovah, which is Jesus, and Michael, the archangel. The story of creation and the fall of man are told much like the story of Genesis, but with some Mormon twists. If you read the book of Moses, you'll get the endowment story from there. The story of creation and the fall of man are told much like the story in Genesis, but with some Mormon twists. For example, Michael becomes Adam, the first man. After the fall, Peter, James, and John, not yet born, come down. They're pre-incarnate. Come down from heaven on several occasions to give Adam and Eve the key signs, words, and tokens which will allow them and their posterity to one day return home to heaven. After the storyline is played out, the candidate is presented at the veil of the temple, gives the signs, words, and tokens he or she just received to Elohim, which is a priesthood holder standing on the other side of the veil, right? You just see his hand reach out for you through this curtain, okay? And incidentally, the square and compass are on this curtain. And he reaches his hand through this veil. And you give him the key words, signs, and tokens, and then the candidate is admitted through the veil into the celestial room, which represents the highest kingdom of heaven. And you go in there and everything. So as you go through these rooms, it gets more grander, more grander, more grander. There's more gold. There's the furnishings are.
The chandeliers are to die for.
Chandeliers are. They spend lots of money on these buildings.
That's your tithes.
Yeah, it is.
That's right. Brigham Young stated, your endowment is to receive all those ordinances in the house of the Lord which are necessary for you after you have departed this life to enable you to walk back to the presence of the Father, passing the angels who stand as sentinels, being enabled to give them the key words, signs, and tokens pertaining to the holy priesthood, and gain your eternal exaltation in spite of earth and hell. That's what he said. So let me put that in English for you. What that means is, what they're telling you is that one day, after judgment, you're going to go to heaven, right? And as you're making your way there, you're going to come to angels who stand guard and you're going to have to give them the key words, signs, and tokens
Password.
in order to pass the angel who stand as sentinels.
Password.
Where does the new name come in with that then?
The new name. Oh yeah, okay. So when you get your garments, when you're going through your washing and anointing, there's a ritual there in between where they give you a new name. So everybody gets a new name.
You can't forget.
That you can never forget, because when you go through the endowment, one of the key words, so that's what I'm doing here. See, these are the same in the endowment and in Freemasonry. That's the sign. That's one of the signs. So you give the sign and you give the word, and then you give the handshake. That's the three of those get you by the next angel.
So if I asked my brother-in-law what his new name was, would he tell me?
No.
No.
So you do this endowment ceremony once?
You do it once for yourself, then you keep returning to do it for the dead.
So what happens if you are mentally you can't remember all of these signs and symbols and...
You don't have to. Go ahead, Mike.
They have temple workers, and they'll, if you stumble on a word,
they'll whisper it to you. So there's people there. You walk through it, and you can't mess it up.
Mike was a temple worker. He was a good boy.
So you walk through it, you can't mess it up, and if you miss something, they'll, like he said, they'll whisper it into your ear. And you don't have, every time you go back for an ancestor, that ancestor will get a new name as well. You don't have to remember that, you only have to remember yours.
But how would they know if you didn't remember the right name?
Because when you get to the veil, the Lord will ask you for the name, and He knows what it is. And if you don't give it,
saying it too, so
but you get up there and you're nervous and you'll forget, and you'll look at the guy and he'll whisper the new name back to you. Because everybody knows what it is.
Everybody has the same name?
No.
No.
Everybody has the same
that
name
day.
that day.
That day. That day.
So you might go in and the name is Adam.
And so it can change every time you go?
Changes every day, yes.
It changes every day.
So on the day you went for your own
There are
endowment,
so many names in the Bible and in the Book of Mormon.
But do you have to remember that name you received on your endowment
Your own-
to get to heaven?
you must
So it
remember.
doesn't change every time you go to the temple then?
No, every time you go to the temple for your ancestors, each one of those ladies would get a new name. You don't have to remember, but you have to remember
Your
yours.
name to get to heaven.
That's right. And so also, your wife, if you're a male, your wife is not supposed to know your name, but you must know her name.
Oh yeah, because she's going to call you out, right?
Because on the day of resurrection, Jesus will call all the men, the priesthood, Jesus will call the priesthood out of the grave. And the priesthood will then turn around and call their wives up out of the grave.
What if they don't want to?
I don't know, if I'm in a grave, man, I'm getting up for anybody.
No, I mean, what if the man doesn't want to call his wife?
Oh.
Well, he's got a lot of wives to choose from, so it's, it works out.
But that's,
Wow, you have to be really subservient to your husband.
and I would say that was part of the mind control in Salt Lake City when all those women were out there and there was polygamy going on, and this was another thing. If you're not serving your husband, well, he may not pull you out of the ground. So you just imagine the time period and where you were and being a woman in that situation, how it must have been. All right. Let's move along here.
You can watch the ceremony.
So if you want to watch the endowment, there have been people that have snuck cameras. They figured out all this was a joke, and before they left, they took their temple endowment and they've gone in with secret cameras. And you can go in and you can see the whole thing. It's about an hour and a half long if you want to watch it. After receiving all the ordinances from baptism to the endowment, husbands, wives, and their families can return to the temple to be sealed. This is not marriage until death you part, but for all of time and eternity. Mormons then return to the temple as often as possible to perform all ordinances for their dead. The lies. Ask yourself, does the endowment more resemble the ordinance as described in the temple of the Bible, King Solomon's temple, or does it more resemble the rites of Freemasonry? The answer is obvious if you study it, or if you go through both of them like I did. The truth, there have been people who have tried to link Masonic ritual to the Knights Templar, to the building of Solomon's temple, to the Tower of Babel, and even back to Adam. But most Masons will tell you that it is not nearly that ancient, and that it is simply a men's fraternity.
Yeah.
What we do know is that the earliest known Masonic manuscripts only date back to 1390. They're called the Regis Poem or the Halliwell manuscript. There's some links to that. The first Grand Lodge wasn't organized until 1717. So how can Mormonism claim to have restored the original ritual when the Masons themselves don't even claim that it's from ancient origin? Masons don't even believe that it came from Solomon's temple. It just hasn't been around that long. Go ahead.
Are there any other ceremonies or rituals that a Mormon has to perform in or have performed for them in the temple to gain entrance into the celestial kingdom?
Yes, you have to go through all the same. So if you're a convert to the church and you've gone through all the ordinances yourself, and now you want to go back for your grandfather who died several years ago, okay? He has to go through all the same ordinances, so you have to stand in for him. The first thing is baptism. Then the laying on of hands for the Holy Ghost. This is all done in the temple, though. They don't do this. This is too sacred to be done anywhere but the temple.
So baptism is only done in the temple? Or
For the dead.
For the dead.
For the living get baptized right over here in this building. But for the dead, that work is only done in the temple. If it was your grandfather, he would have to receive the priesthood. So that's another ordinance where the hands are laid upon the head and the priesthood's given to grandpa. Then grandpa has to go through the washing and anointings and receive his garment and receive his new name. And then grandpa has to go through the endowment, the hour-and-a-half long ritual to get all the signs, words, and tokens. And then grandpa has to go upstairs in the temple to be sealed to grandma after she's done her baptism and her washing and anointings, getting her new name, her garments, and all of it. So do you see how you can't do all that in one day?
It never ends.
It never ends. Then once it's grandpa, then it's great-grandpa. And all the children, and all their children's children, and the cousins, and anybody you can find, you continue to
You just wrapped up in this, you eat, drink, breathe.
I've got 10,000 names in my data bank of ancestors, my genealogy.
But if you had 5 brothers,
Never even scratched the surface.
between you?
Of course.
So, how often is it required that you do temple work?
As often as you can.
As often as you can, but I've heard people say you should at least go once a month. If you're not going once a month.
What if you stop for?
Technically, it's not required.
It is not
but
required?
it's highly
Recommended?
recommended. It's highly
They recommend that you at least do back through your grandparents.
What if your grandparent is overtly anti-Mormon?
Are they dead?
Yeah, and now dead. Would you still do that?
Yes.
To somebody like that?
Mike can answer it.
what they'll teach you is that when you go to the ordinance of your grandfather, whatever his ideologies are, that he'll be asked, do you want to do this? And he can say, no, thank you. It doesn't have to become one. It doesn't have to be baptized in church.
But you still do the ritual.
He'll be so happy
that you did it for.
That you're doing that for him, that he'll jump at the chance. That's what they'll teach
You remember our class on the Mormon plan of salvation? So your grandpa is in the spirit world, and the missionaries are on their little spirit bikes with their little spirit badges, and they're teaching grandpa the gospel, and he accepts it. but he has to have the work done, so you're here doing this for Grandpa.
Yeah, I do.
But on the other
that,
side-
But there are some people, like the guy, I didn't think of it, so you were talking about the group from Wausau that came to kill
Warsaw.
Joseph Smith and his brother. And it's like, that's a pretty clear statement that you don't like these guys.
But we assume,
After they died.
but we assume that in the spirit world, they've had a change of heart.
What about the Jewish people? Do they still, they got very upset. They're not baptizing for them anymore, are they?
No, they say they've stopped, I don't know.
Oh, there's no way they can control that.
How do you know? It's all done in secret, but they say they've stopped doing that.
And that's, everybody's gonna die, and when you die, your name is gonna go through the temple at one point or time or another. Because somebody down the road who's gonna look up your family is gonna do your name in the temple.
That's right.
It's just a matter of time after
You will be dead and gone, and somebody's
gonna do your work.
My name's already in the temple,
Exactly.
in the library. I had an Aunt May who was Mormon.
Okay, well, if that name is in the database,
It is.
when you die, eventually somebody who may not even be related to
Have it
you.
removed?
I don't know. I don't think you
It
can.
doesn't matter to me. I know where I'm going and who I'm going to be with.
But the point is, like my 10,000 names, there's no way I could ever do them all in a lifetime. But the names are in there, and there's people I don't even know that are doing the work.
Wouldn't it be nice?
You can go in, if you don't have your own name, you can just show up to the temple and say, I don't have any names of my own today. Oh, that's okay, Brother Parker. Here's a list from other people that have submitted names, and you can just...
Part of your good works that you're doing.
That's right. Doing it first. And I've done that for people who, had some pretty interesting stories from the 1600s who never came to America. They were born in, Sweden or somewhere else. I think I've done some Irish folks. That's right.
Yeah, we like to be dug up too.
All right. The apologists. Most Mormon apologists that I have read say basically the same thing. That yes, Joseph may have borrowed some things from Freemasonry, but what we must understand is that Joseph's pattern for learning. Joseph's pattern for learning. Okay, so he would experience something, he would pray about it, get a revelation, and then that would be doctrine. Just like we talked about the word of wisdom. Everybody's coming over, they're spitting on Emma's floor. The tobacco, she gets upset, he has a revelation, the word of wisdom. And so what I say to that is that Joseph had sex with a 16-year-old housemaid, Fanny Alger. Then he prayed about it, and the Lord said, that's okay, Joseph, you just restored polygamy. And that's how. Anything he did that was questionable, he would just pray about it, and then it becomes, it's okay for everybody. Conclusion, the Mormon Temple and the Temple Endowment are just more examples of how Joseph Smith stole from other groups and added to them in order to build his Mormon life. These are quotes from Mormon leaders. Joseph Smith told me Freemasonry, this is not talked about anymore, but you can find this stuff in old church documents. Told me Freemasonry as president was the apostate endowments, as sectarian religion was the apostate religion. Joseph the prophet was aware that there were some things about Masonry which had come down from the beginning, and he desired to know what they were, hence the lodge. The Masons admitted to some keys of knowledge appertaining to Masonry were lost. Joseph inquired of the Lord concerning the matter, and he revealed to the prophet true Masonry as we have it in our temples. Owing to the superior knowledge Joseph had received, the Masons became jealous and cut off the Mormon lodge.
Billy, how much can we attribute to Joseph, and how do we know that, sometimes a story gets bigger than the actual person, and how much of this really came from Joseph Smith, and how much of it became a story that just got out of hand and became bigger than him.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably been a lot of that. But
He
what
had a journal that he wrote in, so a lot of these things have come out of his own hand.
yeah, that was one thing that we do have is his journal. So, I mean, if he wrote it,
He wrote it.
yeah, he wrote it. It's not something that's been,
Fabricated that he said.
but there's a lot of other stories that have been
Yeah.
added to it.
Embellished.
So you can go on and read through those. I'm not going to read them all. We have the true masonry. The masonry of today is received from apostasy, which took place in the days of Solomon and David. They have now and then a thing that is correct, but we have the real thing. And so what I'm trying to show you with these is this is what the early Mormons really believed, that the Masonic fraternity, which is not of ancient origin, is that it is something that needed to be restored. And Joseph did that, and they bought it. They believed it. Let you read those.
Did the Masons ever in their teachings say that, at this time, this is something from, thousands of years ago that's been brought forward, or they knew the origin?
No, when you go through the Masonic ritual, they tell you that these things happened at Solomon's temple, right? When you're going through the play, they'll tell you that these things happened at Solomon's temple. But what I'm talking is about outside that play, you ask a Mason, was this really what happened at Solomon's temple? No, this is a fraternity. You're putting too much into it. That makes sense? Some videos you may want to go back and look at. BBC documenting, this is when they're talking to Elder Holland about Mitt Romney. And they're asking, well, did Mitt Romney did he commit to having himself killed if he reveals the secrets of the temple? And they're asking him questions. Would he be more obligated to the church than the American people? And they're trying to brush all that off. Interesting to watch the interview. Again, you want to see a Mormon baptism for the dead, how they do that? I mean, you go in and you keep getting dumped one after another. You can do like 30 of these things until you get tired. Washing and anointings. I don't know how this guy got a camera into that, because you're basically naked and they put a poncho over you.
Maybe get glasses and camera.
No, because the camera's sitting out in front of him.
Not anymore, because you have your garments on with the robe over top of you. So, I mean, it used to be that you didn't have them on.
Yeah.
Now you wear your garments.
I don't know how, but when you go and see this, you're going to think, having been, how did he sneak that in there? Because you pretty much are naked.
Yeah.
You don't have pockets. Yeah, and he's going, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cash.
But he got it in there.
Cash.
So Billy,
Yeah.
when you have your name
Gets anywhere
removed from
almost,
the
right?
church,
What's that?
when you have your name removed from the church's list, does all of your anointing and all that go away? So you're not.
Yeah, they'll send you a letter telling you that they'll send you a letter telling you that all your temple rights or whatever the wording is for it have been.
So it's like you've never been baptized into the church.
No. You're an apostate. You are going to outer darkness because you've turned away.
There's no hope for you.
That's correct.
But of all these
Praise God,
baptisms,
there's
like been expunged and are no good anymore then?
That you've done, no, the work you've done is still good.
Oh, okay.
No, all the work you've done is still good. But you're not, because you've turned away from it now. Here's another Mormon endowment ceremony. There's a Mormon wedding on here. Somebody snuck a camera into a Mormon ceiling.
Now, Billy, in a Mormon, in the temple wedding, would they be in the garments, the whites?
They would be in all of this.
Dressed like a bride?
No.
see that so I can see how my niece was married.
They would wear all of this stuff. They'll both kneel at the altar, one on each side. They'll take them each other by the hand in the what they call the patriarchal grip, and then they've got a a ritual saying that they say over to one another and to God over the altar.
They do wear their wedding dress. The women will wear their wedding dress during the actual physical marriage part, but when it comes to the sealing part of it, then they go and change into the temple clothes.
So you'll see a Mormon bride walk into the temple with a traditional wedding gown and all that.
Very, very modest. You can't, no spaghetti strap type wedding dresses and stuff.
You're covered.
They're very modest, or you don't get in.
They'll go in, they'll perform, they'll put on these clothes, they'll perform all that stuff, and then you'll see her walk back out of the temple with her wedding dress on.
Who can be in the ceremony? Who's witnessing the ceremony?
Only people who have a temple recommend.
I have a question,
So outside relatives can't come to the
if let's say you have a daughter or a granddaughter who is a Mormon and goes into the temple and you're not, you can't go. You can't go to the wedding.
Now, is that a choice to get married in the temple, or is that an expected thing if you're in a certain society?
It's a privilege, more like.
So it's highly desired. So it's something.
Well, I mean, here's the thought. Why would you go and get married anywhere else? Because it's not forever.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's what you sealed.
Yeah.
It's forever in the
I
temple.
can honest, my barcode was in there. I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
You need to recheck it. Your database isn't up to date.
Yeah, wouldn't that be bad if you showed up on your wedding day and your temple recommended been revoked? That'd be bad. Here's some other movies. One I'll refer you to called
Temple of Doom.
The Mormon Temple of Doom. I don't have it, but you can watch that. This guy, like me, he was a Freemason and a Mormon. He was a Mormon for only 5 years, but he knows quite a bit. But before any of this, he was a member of the Satanic Church. And he talks about in his videos how a lot of things he saw in Freemasonry and in Mormonism, he saw the same exact symbolism in the Satanic Church.
That is from the pit of hell. Mormonism is from the pit of hell.
But now he's a Christian, and so he exposes all of these things. He's got another one called Freemasonry, Fatal in the First Degree. I would recommend that. Is Mormonism more Masonic than Christian? Look at all their symbols. That's another video that's interesting. And here's another video. Didn't get into this much tonight, but the hidden faith of our founding fathers. We talked about how they were all Freemasons. Growing up in school, I was taught that they were all Christian. No doubt about it. They were all Christian men, and the country is a Christian nation. I would highly recommend you go and watch that video. They were deists. They believed more in the God of Freemasonry than they did anything else. That's just the truth.
Is there any record or any talk about that Joseph Smith might somewhere along in his life had some, well, I hope I'm getting this right. I wonder if I'm getting this right. Did he ever have doubts about it that we know of?
Yes.
Well,
did he?
Yes.
What do you?
I don't remember the exact quote, but the answer is yes.
That he had doubts about everything he was doing?
I'll have to find the quote, but there's a really good quote.
I'd be interested to see that. I mean, my thing is, if it was all a lie, it was all hoax.
I'm not saying 100% of everything he taught, but one of his teaching, maybe the temple's polygamy. Polygamy for sure, he
had doubts about
doubted about it, that it would be the fall of the Mormon church. Polygamy.
I think he knew that all of what he was doing was a fraud. I mean, either you went into the Kirtland Temple and saw every prophet and apostle from Adam to Paul, or you didn't. That being said, and this is just me, I think that, and we're going to talk about it more in the last class, Joseph was involved in some other things that I believe some of this was not all Joseph's doing. Like the seer stone, the treasure hunting. He carried a medallion called the Jupiter Talisman. Mormons don't know much about. We're going to talk about that in the last class. But he was into this occult stuff before he ever became, quote unquote, a prophet. And I believe that he had demonic forces that were working on him.
Something about drugs.
I hear he liked his whiskey. I don't know that. I've read that in a few places, but
People do strange things drinking whiskey.
yeah, me too. Me too.
Billy, what is your YouTube? How do we get to you? Just type in your name, Billy Parker?
Yeah, just probably type that in, or send me an email and I'll send you a link to it.
Okay.
Or you can, all of these are being recorded, and then all the classes so far have been on YouTube if you want to go and watch. If you missed one, you can go back. And if you just punch in the name of the class, like today, the name of today's class, type that in, it should come right up. I think that's it. Any questions? Any more questions?
I had some.
Go ahead.
I was reading the Salt and City Messenger from 2007 that we picked up here. And it said, a translation, when there was David Whitmore, his own description of the way Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon. I will now give you a description of the manner in which the Book of Mormon was translated. Joseph Smith would put the seer stone into a hat. A seer, being a demonic symbol, and put his face in the hat, which is very interesting, drawing it closely around his face to exclude the light. Jesus says the light. Now you're in the darkness, and in the darkness the spiritual light would shine. So in question 9, Jared noticed the fact that in one of the revelations given through the stone, Joseph appears to have God speaking positively about Oliver's use of a divining rod. And a divining rod was used for finding water and different things. And it actually, my sister had a divining spirit, right? I couldn't get her out of it. I couldn't explain to her it was the devil. But what it does is, and in Ireland they have the stick with a fork. It's like a fork. And you walk around, because in Ireland oftentimes they were trying to find wells in the middle of a field. And she'd walk around, and she was getting paid big money for this. She'd walk around with this divining rod, and when it came across where the well was deep under the ground, the thing bit towards the ground. But it was a demonic power that was using her. Because she'd fallen when she was a little girl, and something strange happened to her. But you couldn't tell her. She'd fight you immediately.
A lot of people use that back in right here in the American continent back in
and
those
they
days.
were using that too, but through the seer stone, he got all the words for his book. So the demons were using him. He was a little 14-year-old guy. You don't have a clue what you're doing. You don't know who's using it.
He had the seer stone that he found in a field, and he believed that he could use it to find treasure. I don't know any treasure that he ever found. But the point is, he had these type of things, and we're going to talk about like the Jupiter talisman. He had these occult type things that he believed in. These stones, these jewels, and things that he believed in before any of this Mormon stuff ever happened. And that's why I say, just me, I think that there was some other powers greater than Joseph that.
Oh yes, there was.
Any other questions? All right, if there be none, then I'll say a prayer and we'll go home.